Hi, Monsignor Farisi, welcoming you to my room and our 14th fireside chat of this pandemic. Again, we're still kind of like in lockdown. We're going out more and more often, but I thought at least one more time just to come into your home and to talk a little bit about things that are important in our society and in our church, especially during this time of pandemic. I talk a little bit about one of the saints or something religious, but I'd like to speak about someone who is a very religious person, great author, who wrote some of the most religious novels I have ever read. He's probably my favorite writer of novels. I'm speaking of Fyodor Dostoevsky. One of my great joys last year is going to St. Petersburg, to the apartment where he died writing. He lived there with his family. Very ardent member of the church, the Russian Orthodox Church, and a real beacon of what the world would be like without God or religion. It's a scary thing. One of the books he wrote, I want to share this with you. He wanted to write a novel about a Christian person, a person who is good. And he said this is one of the hardest things he's ever tried to do. If you notice, most of the novels are about bad people. Most of the movies, TV shows, they're all about bad people. But he wanted to write about a good person who lives the life of Christ in daily life. You know what he called it? The Idiot. Now, he's not saying that the person's an idiot, but he's saying the world looks upon holiness as though it's not important, and that anybody that follows it, there's all these innuendos when, in a movie, when you see a cross, a crucifix, someone's going to be a religious, crazy person. They'll never show a really solid, intelligent, faith-filled person. No. If there's a cross up there, then this person is going to be probably a multi-murder suspect, because we have a prejudice against religion in this country. It's growing, and it's very dangerous to our country. Very dangerous. They just came out with a ruling by one of the judges saying, if you allow protests to form in these times, which is part of our culture, part of our way of self-expression, why does that extend to faith and religious gatherings? And you could see it in different ways, this kind of like oblique ways of looking at things. Dostoevsky lived at a time when there was percolating in Russia what eventually began to be what I would call the beginnings of this communist revolution. There were lots of people talking about getting rid of society, getting rid of everything, revolution, revolution, revolution. And at first Dostoevsky was buying into it, and he was caught in being one of these societies that were overthrowing the Tsar. He was sent to Siberia, where he regained his faith, and after 7 years of hard labor, living with convicts, he came back and began to be a very productive citizen of Russia, as well as a real ardent member of the church. He learned there what the world could be without God. Very, very frightening. So he wrote The Idiot about a Christian person and how the world doesn't know what to do with him. Prince Myshkin in this book, it's a marvelous character, but he seems odd to everybody because his way of looking at things was very different, very Christian. Then he wrote another book about a world without God called Demons. That is one of the most frightening books you ever want to read. And it came to pass in Russia. They overthrow the church, atheistic state. Thank God we were praying for the conversion of Russia. And through our Blessed Mother, we were able to pray for the downfall of communism, which fell without a single gun shooting. It fell from inside. Clearly a sign of the divine action as a consequence of prayer. And so now it's a very ardent, as I said, I went to Russia. There's a monastery in Russia with 300 monks, most of them young, trying to live the faith. So this country that wanted to stamp out religion ended up now as a very religious country. So it's kind of an amazing thing to see that. But he saw the consequence of a loss of religion and faith, that the institutions of the world they collapse. Anarchy and chaos comes, and or a police state, which is even worse. Mao Zedong, Hitler, and Stalin, Lenin, these people were not only not religious, they were against religion, and they were responsible for more murders than all the centuries before. All the centuries. You know, the anti-religious people are, oh, the Inquisition. Oh, the Inquisition was tiny compared to the murders done by the atheists. So atheism is not a benign thing. In fact, George Washington warned that the whole republic that we have is based on free acceptance of faith and religion. The separation of church and state was not to obliterate religion, it was to protect religion, so that the government got its hands off of religion and let people worship freely. Eisenhower, in I think it was 1952, said that you've got to remember that all governments of the United States, federal and state governments, are based on people being religious. That their religion was an inherent part of the state. Now you'll see there's a very intolerant strain going around, both on the left and on the right, trying to reshape America. They're terrifying in some ways. And we're saying, well, where are the elements of faith? Where are the great elements of faith that really do change? The abolition of slavery was a consequence of people of faith. So many of the great movements in our own day, the movement against racism, the movement against the killing of children in the womb, a lot of it's religious people who are agitating for the protection of the individuality and each person. When you take religion out of the equation, then people can do what they want. China has no religion. China can lie, can cheat, can do anything they want, because as long as it works, it's good. And there are Americans that think that way too. We can't just say the Chinese. Because when you take God and there's no moral order and there's no objective morality, watch it. You're next. Someone's going to find fault with what you think and what you believe, and you have no basis to even exist. So it's very, very, it's, that's what Hitler tried to do. He tried first against people who had mental illness or handicapped. He put them all in buses, sent them to camps, and killed them all because they were life unworthy of life. That's his own phrase. And there are people who think that there are some people and some persons in the formation, in the womb, who are not worthy of life. They're not really human. They're not really people. And so they can be gotten rid of. And so you begin to see the importance of faith for our development as a country that has separation of church and state, for the mutual benefit of both. You don't want a religion to control everything, one religion versus the others, as they had in many countries. The United States was formed by a lot of people who are very religious, had to flee Europe because they couldn't be religious freely. And so this separation of church and state was meant to prevent the government from getting their hands on religious doctrine and religious faith and establishing a good religion versus a bad religion. They said, get your hands off that. Very important. So if Dostoevsky saw this, you could begin to see how important the idea of faith is. You yourself know that, when you look at television, and most of us have been watching more television than we even care to even think about because of the pandemic. It's so much of it is so vacuous, empty. It's the same stories over and over again. Different faces, different plot points, same story. I think there's only like 5 basic stories that it's told over and over again. And you see even in our newscasts a very unreligious viewpoint. Religion only comes in if there's something wrong with that religion or they do something wrong. That's when religion becomes central. And they don't realize, the people that propagate this, how bigoted it is. It's prejudice. It's a prejudice, a bigotry against people of faith. So the warning of Dostoevsky still rings true today. Be careful. Be careful of trying to base your whole civil government on nothing but reason. Why is that? Because what I believe is in my reason may not be in your reason. And I might think I'm right and you're wrong and you have no right. When we are grounded in God, we all have inalienable rights granted by our Creator. Declaration of Independence. Yeah. So you begin to see how the presupposition of even our documents that incorporated us as United States of America were made not as an attack on religion. They assumed a religious feeling or the religious background. And that's what made this experiment in governing successful. The French Revolution failed. The Russian Revolution failed. The American Revolution did not fail, and it was a success. Why? Because of the faith of our founding fathers and mothers. It's amazing. It's really amazing when you think about it. So we need to, as religious people, to begin to understand that even though we can't impose our religion on everybody, making everyone Catholic, we as Catholics have got to speak up from the point of view of our own faith about certain principles and ideas that are foundational for our government. And so many of those ideas come from religious tradition. It's essential. And this prejudice against religion, whatever religion, this prejudice against religion is really, they'll say things, they're always so violent, the religious people. Yeah, we have some violent people in our past, definitely. To which I answer, Hitler, Mao Zedong, Lenin, Pol Pot, all friendly, grown atheists. And boy, oh boy, study the amount of people killed by them. You could put all the religious, the people killed by religious leaders on one side and all the ones killed by the atheists on the other side. No comparison. Atheism can be very dangerous. So we pray together that we might take our faith more seriously. We've had plenty of time to reflect on our faith. We've had time alone, time with our family. We begin to understand that maybe this is one of the reasons why God did this or allowed this, to give us time to think through our priorities and what we believe in. And to say, Lord, I really, really trust that that my faith is important for America. Not that, again, I want to, get on a soapbox and preach Catholicism. I have the freedom to do that, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that I can have a vibrant Catholic faith, and let me bring that vibrant Catholic faith into the voting booth, in our discussions of politics, and to say religion is important for the future of America. Let's pray together that we might make that difference in our society. Have a good week, and hopefully maybe I'll have another fireside chat next week. Take care, God bless, and take care of your families. Be safe.